quick video is going to show you a few ways that you could import livestock measurements. You'll import the measurements with a spreadsheet, and you can do that on individual animals or for all your animals at once. I'll take you through both ways in this video. First, let's work with one animal at a time. I'm going to choose one of our bulls and see that we have a tab for measurements. Now, Vinny doesn't have any measurements yet. We could add them manually if we wanted to, but if you're just getting started with Farmbrite, it might be easier to import your historical measurements. So we can go to the Actions button and we can choose Import Records. We provide a spreadsheet template for you to download. I'm going to open that up and take a look at it now. The intent of this template is really to give you these column headers. These are the names of the fields that you'll be importing for the measurement. So real common things like height and weight, or maybe their temperature, and of course a date that they're measured. Now, if you don't need some of these columns, you can easily delete them. For example, the FOMACHA score here is really specific to goats. If we're not measuring goats, we can just delete that column. Maybe we just want to add weight in these measurements. We'll delete all the other columns, and then through some magic video editing, I'll populate the spreadsheet. Now, one important thing to note is that there is no animal ID in this spreadsheet. We're only importing the measurements for this one animal, so we don't need to supply an ID. We're going to see how that's different when you're uploading measurements for multiple animals in just a minute. So now I might rename this spreadsheet, and then I'll download it into a CSV format. And we'll go back over to Farmbrite. And remember, we're already on this individual animal's record, so I'm going to choose the file, and then click Next. Now, because we use the template, it already knows that the date column is the date field, and the weight column is the weight field. I'm going to import it. We just imported 9 of them successfully. We'll go back to the Measurements tab, and we'll see all the measurements added. So if the data that you have outside of Farmbrite is organized by animal, this might be an easy way to get all the historical measurements for that one single animal into the system. Alternatively, if you want to import measurements for multiple animals at the same time, you can do that. We're going to go back to our animals list. And under the Actions menu, we're going to see an option for Bulk Update from File. Now, this screen looks familiar. It's the standard upload process. Anything that you're uploading in Farmbrite is going to use the same 3-step process, and will always give you a CSV template. And you could use the template if you want, but I'm going to show you a bit of a Farmbrite hack right now that's going to make this a lot easier for you. I'm going to go back to the Livestock tab and back to Animals. And under that same menu, I'm going to choose Download All Records. That option is going to get me a spreadsheet. Let's open it. And that contains all of the existing data for all of the animals in the system. What's really important here, and why this is such a hot tip, is that this spreadsheet includes a column for ID. This is the internal ID of the animal that's used to track all the individual records within Farmbrite. Now, of course, you're still going to have names and tag numbers and things like that, so you can easily identify the individual animals. But this ID is kind of like the key so that Farmbrite knows the measurement you're going to import is associated with that animal. And we could update any of the fields that are listed on this sheet. You can see all of the columns here showing you lots of different data for this animal. And as I scroll to the right, we're going to find the measurement fields, measurement date, condition score, weight, height, and more. Just like we saw on the individual animal template, we could clean up this sheet and only include the columns for what we actually want to import. So let's do that. And see that I left the column for ID and also name, because that will make it easier for me to figure out which animal we're actually working with. And the ones we want to work with in this example are these 4 goats here in this group. So I'm going to delete all of the other records so that I only have these 4 animals on the sheet, because I'll be adding measurements for them. Also, be aware that you could filter your animal list in Farmbrite first, and then just export the records that you want to add measurements for. I wanted to be thorough in this example and show you can export all of them if you want to, but you might set some filters on your livestock page and then just export the ones that you're really looking for. Now I want to add some of my measurement data. As an example, I'm going to add 5 different measurements and 5 different dates for each one of our goats. And in order to do that, I need to add some rows to the spreadsheet. So I'm going to add 4 rows to goat 1, and then do the same for the other 3. And what's really key here is to add this ID to each one of those rows. So now I have 5 rows each for goat 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, with some video editing, I'll fill it all out. And now we have a completed sheet. And what I really want to highlight here is that we have 5 different measurements across 5 different dates for each one of these goats. The ID column is the same for all of those rows, but the measurement date and data is different. And with all the records added, I don't really need the name column anymore, so I'm going to delete that one. Again, I'll rename my spreadsheet and then download it as a CSV file. And we'll go back to Farmbrite, and we'll go back to the Actions menu, and again, choose Bulk Update from File. You'll see that this is set to Update Existing Records. That means we're going to make updates to those existing goat records in the spreadsheet. We're not creating brand new animals. I'll choose the file, click Next, and because we started from that export from Farmbrite, all of the columns are already mapped correctly. ID to ID, weight to weight, and so on. We'll import. 20 records imported successfully, 5 per goat. I'm going to go back to our livestock menu, and I'm going to set a filter here to just see our goats. And there's goats 1, 2, 3, and 4. Our last weights are already in there, but if I go to goat 1 and look at measurements, there's all the measurement data that I just imported. And really quickly, we'll go back and take a look at goat 2 and see the same thing. One last thing to note here, there is a limit of uploading 1,000 records at a time, so don't add more than 1,000 rows to that spreadsheet. Okay, if you have any questions about importing these, certainly feel free to reach out. Glad to help you out. Thanks.